Well, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. It is 7 o'clock, so we're going to get started with our special guest and allow folks to join us as we're in progress. Thank you, everyone, for being with us here tonight as we are live from the South Orange Maplewood School District Board Meeting Room. Welcome to our Freedom to Read event with our very special guest, Michael Threats, this evening. In discussion and dialogue, we're talking about books, the importance of public libraries, school librarians, and of course, inclusive curriculum, and in conversation with our esteemed student leaders from Max Scholars that are joining here tonight, and with questions from students across the school district K through 12, working with their school librarians and our school Clinton librarian, Ms. Jennifer Latimer, who worked to help solicit questions from students across our school district in preparing this event as we welcome Michael this evening. My name is Shannon Cuddle. My pronouns are they and them. I'm with the New Jersey Safe Schools Coalition. And in tonight, we'd also like to thank our sponsors for the evening, which is South Orange Maplewood School District, the, Parenting Center, the South Orange Maplewood School District Freshman Academy, the Township of Maplewood, South Orange, the Village of South Orange. Also like to thank the Community Coalition on Race, and of course, the Maplewood Public Library and the South Orange Public Library for their generous support of this important community event tonight. This event will be taking place live as it happens, and with that, then, you know that in conversation with our student leaders, we'll be leaving live direct comments and conversation with Michael. Throughout the evening, questions will not be taken. Chat is disabled as questions have already been selected from the students across our school district. But if there are any follow-up questions that students may have, please reach out to your school librarian and we will make sure that we can pass them on and send them forward. The theme of tonight's event will be, we're talking about our public libraries, then we'll be going over to our student leaders. There will be conversation as an interview with Michael, and then we'll be going to district questions. At this time, I would like to be able to welcome both our South Orange and Maplewood Public teen librarians and have them introduce themselves and talk about the libraries. First, I'd like to introduce our South Orange teen librarian.
Thank you, Shannon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Keisha Miller. I am the head of youth services at South Orange Public Library. Michael, thank you so much for joining our community this evening. The importance of libraries is just that, they're important. I'm looking over at my colleague, Jen Latimer, and she has a t-shirt on that says, America needs librarians. Just as well, they need public libraries and school libraries and so on. It is important that we support our libraries and we advocate for them because they are the hub of the community in terms of building connections, which is exactly what we're doing. And we provide a safe space for all. We provide a welcoming environment for everybody. And that's just what it is. It's a safe space and we're building connections. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ayola White of Maplewood Memorial Library.
Hi there, my name is Ayola White. I am the Teen Services Librarian at Maplewood Memorial Library. I once again thank you, Michael, for being here and all of our participants for being here. I completely agree with what Keisha said about the importance of having a community hub like public libraries because it's not just the books that are needed, it's also the resources and the relationships that are fostered through libraries among patrons, among library workers, among everybody.
And thank you for those introductions of our public library. I would like to now turn the mic over to our Clinton librarian with the South Orange Maplewood School District, Ms. Jennifer Latimer, who will be introducing our students.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Latimer. I am the team leader for the South Orange Maplewood School Librarians. And I'm famous for saying the library is not always the center of the building, but it is the heart of the building. And it is a place where literally kids skip into the library and, have full expectations of a vibrant location. I am so excited today to introduce our four high school scholars. We have Innocent Sakoko, we have Penza Fall, we have Whitney Cabachstock, and we have Melissa Dubison. And they will be giving you some questions tonight, and hopefully we can, through those questions, learn more about your journey. So I'm going to first hand it off to Innocence.
Hi, Mr. Threets. My name is Innocent Sokoko. We just wanted to thank you so much for making the time to speak to our district and the work you've done for libraries, as well as us readers everywhere. We appreciate you. So let's get into our first question. May you please share with us what libraries mean to you while you were growing up?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be speaking with you here today. What did libraries mean to me growing up? Wow, what a question. I only have so much time. That is usually a question that takes me about half an hour to get through. I will try to condense it to an interview style response. Libraries meant everything to me growing up. They were my favorite place to be. I was raised in libraries. I like to almost joke that I was almost born in libraries, but I was definitely raised in libraries. I've been going to my public library, Solano County Library, since I was 3 years old. That's when I first started falling in love with the library. I would always carry around an alphabet book where the letter P was pancakes. I'm a person who believes that you either like waffles, French toast, or pancakes. I was so much into pancakes, I just carried that book with me everywhere. I took it to church. I took it to Disneyland. I took it to family events. Anywhere there was anywhere where I went, that book went with me. I got my first library card at the age of 5. And I consider that to be the most important day of my entire life. I've had that library card ever since. I just turned 34 this year, so almost 30 years of having a library card, 3 decades of having a library card. That is just so special to me because I am sure we'll talk about it more, but mental health is very important to me. I was a person who suffered from mental health, anxiety, and depression, among other things, as early as 8 years old. And the library was always that place where I felt special, where I felt safe, where I felt like I belonged. When I didn't have any friends, when it was very, very difficult for me to make friends outside of my neighborhood. Books, the characters in those books were my first friends. They were the people I loved. Ramona and Beezus Quimby, Lewis Zacher books, the Chronicles of Narnia characters. The library meant everything to me as a child. If I didn't have the library, I don't know if I would be I know I would not be the person that I am today. So I'm eternally thankful for what libraries have done for my life. It's why I'm doing what I'm doing today. Trying to pass on that library joy, pass on that love for libraries. I don't know if you can see it, but my shirt says, love your library. I love a good tie-dye, and I love library shirts. And I'm just so happy. So thank you for that great first question. I love that question. It's my favorite question that people ask me.
Thank you so much. We have Whitney next with our second question.
Hello. What was your favorite part of being a librarian?
That's such a tough question. What I will say at some point, so I'll warn everybody at some point. In my apartment, I'm surprised they have not shown up yet. I have 2 cats. I call them library cats, but they live with me here. Kissing Cat Barlow and Machine Gun Kitty. They probably just heard their names. At some point, they may come crawling in here, and you may see them jump in my lap. So just a word of warning. And that actually leads me into my favorite part about my favorite part about being a librarian, which is how unexpected things are working at the library. You never know what's going to happen each day. I had almost every single job in the public library. I started out as a shelver. I became a library assistant, working on circulation. So I did a lot of library cards, a lot of helping people out with their accounts. And then I became a library associate, which is the job you need in California to have a bachelor's degree. And I became a children's librarian. I love story time. I love reading Mo Willems books. I love reading Pete the Cat. I love reading Where the Wild Things Are. I loved reading The Monster at the End of this book with Grover. I just loved hearing, I love getting the silly questions from the library kids, having them tell me their stories. And then I became a marketing librarian, and so I started working on social media and the website for libraries. That was probably my most rewarding job, just being able to promote the library to no end, just being able to bother people with library joy and say, have you heard about the library? Do you know what there is at the library? Do you know that there's books? There's ebooks, there's audiobooks, and people are like, I'm not into books. I'm like, guess what? There's board games, there's musical instruments, there's video games, there's free homework help, there's legal help, there's computers, there's Wi-Fi access, there's passes to local museums. There really is something for everybody at the local library. And then so I loved all those things. I know I'm telling you, you're gonna say, what's one favorite thing? I'm a true librarian. There is no one favorite thing. But most of all, I think I love the stories. I love being able to share the stories on social media and in real life, even hybrid style like we're doing right now. The stories mean so much to me because I believe everybody has a library story. The library is always there for people, and that's what I love most of all. Is just that people trust library people with their story because they know that we mean it when we say, you're welcome. You belong at the library. We want to hear your story. We want to hear your passion. And just being blessed, being honored to receive those stories, to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour out of my day, out of their day, just to exchange information, to exchange happiness, to exchange our lives. That is a library. The library is community. It is neighbors. It is stories. And that's my favorite part, I would say. Mr. Rogers is one of my greatest heroes, and Mr. Rogers always talked about the helpers. And I believe that library people and teachers are the helpers that Mr. Rogers was talking about. And I'm just so honored to have been raised by those helpers, to work alongside those helpers, and to just have so many people to help and help me along the way. It was so amazing being a practicing librarian, and it still is so amazing being library's #1 fan.
Thank you, Michael. It is hard. Like trying to find your favorite book is like your favorite child. Can't do it. The next
Impossible.
question we have is from Penda.
Hello. Sorry. Hello. As a librarian and as an advocate for freedom to read, can you please explain what it is and why you think it's important to fight against book banning?
That is such an insightful question. I am a true advocate. I'm a true believer in the freedom to read. It's actually what I love to focus on more so than the fight against banned books. I believe that we all have the right to read. We all have the freedom to read. We all deserve to be literate. We deserve to know how to read and write. It's all around us. It's in book. It's in those ebooks. It's in those audiobooks, but it's also in blogs. We're all in various forms of social media, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. You have to be literate to be able to use those apps to read that text. Even if you watched Squid Games on Netflix, if you're watching Bridgerton, you have the captions on. You have to be literate to read those captions. So the smallest parts of our life are literacy, and that is the freedom to read, is that we all deserve it, because there's a time when people who look like me, people who look like many of you in the room, didn't have the chance to be able to read and write. We weren't allowed to have a library card to be in libraries. So it is our blessing. It is the greatest thing we could ever do, to love to read. And there's so much out there. There's so many stories. There's stories about Black people, about Asian people, about Hispanic people, people from all sorts of communities, and they're just stories. And I think that's what's going on with people who are banning books, is they're so afraid about what's going on in the story that they think there's something more. And sometimes there is like a giant message in these wonderful, beautiful stories, but most often it just is the first chance that many of us have to see ourselves in the books, on the pages. That was probably another one of my favorite parts about being a librarian, was taking suitcases full of books to schools, and letting them check out, because so many people can't get to the library. There's many libraries are closing. They're not open on Saturdays and Sundays. There is no chance, and that's the importance of school libraries, public libraries, partnering, so excited, partnering with these school libraries is the chance for access. And that's why it's important to fight for the freedom to read, because what are we if we can't read books, if we don't get to see ourselves in books? And I firmly believe that the grown-ups and kids should have the right to have that conversation about when they're ready for a certain book. That's totally fine. I'm not arguing that, but don't take it away from everybody else to have that conversation for themselves. It's so powerful. Books are powerful at any level: kindergarten, first grade, 8th grade, high school, college, when you're old and gray, whenever it is, we should be able to have access to these books, and we should be able to see ourselves in books because it's so important. Because books are beautiful. Books are how we become the best version of ourselves. They're how we make friends. They're how we learn about one another. They're lifelong learning. They're lifelong support. And I believe that focusing on that joy, the positivity of the right to read, is how we combat those who are banning books and say, please don't do this. We implore you not to do this. Have more conversations. Talk to 100 people, 1,000 people before you try to ban a book. See what it means to so many people in your community, in your neighborhood, in your library. Let them see how impactful these books are, that they're not indoctrinating, they're not propaganda. They are their sheer ultimate beautiful joy. The glory of books has to be had. And I think when we focus on that, we'll be in such a better world, in a literate world. Focusing on that joy again, I believe that that's the answer to literacy, is joy. Let people read what they want. Let people feel seen. We're going to live in a world where we have the freedom to read. We're literate, and maybe one day we won't have to worry about those banned books. But in the meantime, all of us librarians across the world, all of us library lovers, we're fighting together for that freedom to read so that we can all see ourselves in books as we deserve to feel seen.
Thank you. Next up, we have a question from Innocence.
Sorry about that. Dealing with bullying is sometimes a part of being a student, but as an upstander, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with being bullied and how you personally dealt with it?
Of course, yeah. You know what? I'm so sorry to anybody in the room who has been bullied, who has dealt with bullying. Bullying is so very wrong. I believe it's evil, for lack of a better word. But I think when I think about bullies, often people don't realize even the bullies are going through a lot of things themselves. It doesn't excuse bullying. Bullying, there's no right. You're never in the right for bullying. You're always wrong as a bully. It needs to stop. Stop bullying. It's such a simple thing. That's what we need to do. But I always think that like whenever I've been bullied, I like to think what's going on in those bullies' lives, because I've had bad days. I've had hard days. I've said some things I wouldn't be proud of the next day or years from then. I say, you know what? Maybe when these bullies are saying these awful things to me, to other people, to students like yourselves, they're having an awful day. And I like to take a moment, take a step back and say, even though I'm feeling really bad, even though I'm hurt, maybe this person needs a different response. Maybe if I tell them, I'm really sorry you feel that way. I'm sorry you did that to me. I'm sorry you said that to me. Maybe they'll change their ways, which is really hard to do when you're being bullied, especially as a student, when it's really, really hard when you're trying to fit in. That's when it's really difficult. So that's what I try to do to combat bullying, is just try to be kind, try to think about what they're going through. I've encountered kids who are bullied. Librarians, believe it or not, in a way get bullied very often because it's a very difficult job. Because we do firmly believe that all people belong in the library. And sometimes that means people are coming to the library on their worst day. And unfortunately, they take it out on their friendly neighborhood librarians or library workers. And they say awful things, they say mean things, they do very bad things. And library people, because they're so kind, they're so empathetic, we often say, sometimes you just have to leave for the day. It's not a library day, and they come back and we see where they're at. So there's so many different things we could do. But I think one of the biggest times that I've been bullied, which are twice, cases of cyberbullying. Where people talked about my hair. They talk about the way that I speak, the way that I talk with my hands, like I'm doing right now. Just what I do when I'm talking about libraries, because I love them so much. I love the conversation. And those hurtful things, I think when that was said, I said exactly what I said at the beginning of of the question that you brought up. I just said, you know what? Maybe that person, the person who's saying awful things about me, maybe that's what they think about themselves, and it makes them feel better to take out their anger, their worry, their despair on a person like me. And I don't want to be bullied. No one wants to be bullied, but if that's what it takes for them to feel better, to get to a point where they can hopefully choose kindness, I'm willing to do it. I often know that I'm so blessed to have the platform that I have, and I know that oftentimes library kids, students like yourselves, but also little kindergartners, they see what's said about me. So that's oftentimes why I respond to it, is because a library kid has seen what's been said about me. So I'm like, you know what? What would I tell them if they saw that before I did? And I would want them to focus on the goodness, on the joy. I say joy a lot, on the happiness, on the wonderfulness that's in them. For me, I am often called weird and bullied for being weird. I don't think being weird is a bad thing. I love being weird. I think weird is a wonderful word. It's one of my favorite words. I embrace weirdness. I think in Alice in Wonderland they always say like, "Oh, you're entirely bonkers," and like that's like the best thing ever. I'm like, yes, I am out there, and I love it because that's what you have to be to put libraries in the forefront to show people that's where those of us who have been bullied, that's where we can come together. So I don't know if I fully answered your question, but I would say also just to those being bullied, just to find your people, find your friends, let them know it's okay to be hurt. It's okay to need help. It is okay to feel bad about being bullied. And again, it is not okay to bully people. So I hope you talk. I hope you hope you talk to someone you trust. Maybe they're in the room. Maybe they're in your house right now. Talk to your teachers. Talk to your friends. To your classmates. To your local library staff. Don't be hurt alone. You are not alone. I have an email address that I'll share with the people that you can always reach out to me. People have reached out to me before when they're hurt, when they're being bullied. So yeah, don't dwell too much, but also don't let it go down too deep inside. You don't have to take the bullying alone. There are people who want to help you, who would love to help you, and that's me, your local library friend. And I hope that you're all doing okay if you're being bullied, and we can together we can make it a world where there are no more bullies, and bullies take a break for years and years and years.
Thank you. Well stated. The next question we have is from Melissa.
Hi, Michael. You have been a major advocate for mental health awareness. May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. Can you share with us a little of your story and why you think that it's so important for us to talk all about mental health issues?
Absolutely. I think if you've seen me on social media, you've seen me talk about it relentlessly, and that's because I believe we kind of touched on it a little bit, but just to rehash, again, yeah, I'm a person who suffered from mental health struggles for such a very long time. Knowingly since I was 8 years old, I didn't know what it was at the age of 8, but looking back now, I knew that it was social anxiety. I remember my 8th birthday party, and people singing "Happy Birthday" to me, and I remember just feeling like I'd rather be a turtle and go into my own shell. That was I didn't like that. It's one of my earliest memories. But I also suffered from depression, nightmare disorder. I started having panic attacks right before high school, PTSD, just a whole host of things. And I talk about those so openly because we need to be in a world where that can be talked about. Again, I'm only 34 years old. I just turned 34 in February. And only just now are we starting to talk about these things more openly. So it's been stigmatized for so long. I didn't have people to talk about it to when I was a kid. And I've met so many people at the library, library kids who suffer from anxiety, who suffer from mental health struggles, because it's very real. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health. And I feel like we need to have these conversations because we take students like yourself, for example, who are brilliant, who are very smart, grown-ups. I think often we think that you're not ready for those conversations, when often we're not ready for those conversations, neither party. And because it's so difficult, it's so complicated because mental health is different for every single person. And that's been my story. I've suffered different times in my life at different rates. But the library books have always been there for me. Again, reading those books as kids, I still read them to this day. I was just listening to Holes by Lewis Sacker a couple nights ago. One of my comfort books. Just when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling dark, it helps me. It helps me find the light. Opening those books, laughing, remembering the good times. Me and my brother used to play video games. We would play Crash Bandicoot and listen to Chronicles of Narnia, and it just helped us both so much. So I talk about it again openly because we need to have these conversations. We need to find what helps us. Again, it's okay to not be okay. More people need to hear that. That's why I keep on saying it all the time. There's so many struggles, simple struggles, like when is my assignment due? How am I going to get to school tomorrow? How am I going to ask this person this question? How am I going to find my joy? How am I going to discover my happiness? All those things make our brain whir and whir and whir. Our brain is it's so powerful that sometimes we don't know how to cooperate with our own brains, and it makes things very difficult. It makes it hard to live. It makes it hard to keep on going. That's why I always tell people that I mean it when I say I'm so very happy that you're here in this world today. I'm happy that those of you I can see, I'm happy that you're in that room, that you're together. I'm happy you're staying another day. I know you're on the East Coast. It's almost 8 o'clock over there. It's 5 o'clock here. You've almost made it an entire day, and I am so proud of you for that. And that's why I love talking about it, because it needs to be talked about. I think so often we think about mental health negatively because it is a very hard topic. But I see mental health as something that can be positive when we talk about it, that we can prioritize our mental health. We can take those silly walks for our silly mental health. We can find books that make us feel better. We can find our comfort shows, our cats, our dogs, our best friends, our moms, our dads, our grandmas, our grandpas, whomever it may be. And I just think the more that we talk about that, the better we'll be, and we'll realize that maybe we're all suffering, and when we all suffer together, as much as we don't want to suffer, we're gonna get better. We're gonna all befriend one another. We're gonna find what works. We're gonna check on each other each day. We're gonna say mental health check. How are you really doing? What is good in your life? And we're gonna get towards joy. That's our destination. That's our goal. We're gonna reach. The more we talk about it, the more open we are, the more we have these conversations at all stages of life, all ages of life, we are going to be in the best shape, the best health of our life, physical health and mental health. I think the library, a place where you can learn everything, where you can learn what it means to be your best self. That's just a perfect starting point to make friends, to figure out where you are, and it's just up and up and up from there.
I think that's our new tagline, where you can go to be your best self at the library. So now we're going to move into the question portion, which came from the students in the different schools. We had some very interesting conversations trying to get them to bring out their meatiest questions. So I'm going to throw it to Innocence for our first question.
A third grader from Marshall Elementary School asks, do you like to read to your cat? This was a highly anticipated question, so they were very interested in your cats.
I love that question. I love to read to both of them. Kissing Cat Barlow will listen to me read far more than Machine Gun Kitty will. Machine Gun Kitty is not the biggest fan of books yet. She's only 3 years old. She loves to watch Netflix and Hulu with me much more. But Kissing Cat Barlow does love when I read to her. They really like picture books. I've tried reading chapter books, but they don't like to sit still that long. But I'm trying each and every day. We're gonna make them Machine Gun Kitty a reader soon. But for now, she loves watching Netflix with me. But she also loves using Hoopla and Canopy. We watch those together. But Kissing Cat Barlow, I try to read at least 2 books to her every single day.
The children will be thrilled to know this. We're gonna throw it now to Whitney.
A sixth grader from South Orange Middle School asks, how does reading make you feel?
Wow. How does reading make me feel? You know what? It makes me feel different things at different times. Whenever I'm reading, I try to read every single day. It's a lesson that I picked up from my mom and dad very early, probably at the age of about 3. Actually, no, probably 5. My mom and dad had us start reading for at least an hour every single day. That's how we could watch TV for an hour a day. That's how I got to watch Arthur or Mr. Rogers or Reading Rainbow, is after reading for an hour a day. So I feel like I've felt every single emotion, it feels like, at different times in my life. It honestly depends on what I'm reading. I read all sorts of things. I read sci-fi, I read picture books, I read chapter books, I read mystery, I read thrillers. If I'm reading thrillers, I might feel a little bit of intensity, a little bit of stress for a person who has a lot of stress already. Maybe I shouldn't be reading those books, but I still do. But most often, like, I'm reading the books like I love over and over. It just is happiness. It's feeling content. It's like, I'm back with my friends. I'm reading about my pals all over again. So just contentment, safety, solace is the main feelings, but it all depends on the book. Different times, reading Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It all depends on the day. But most often, I would say contentment, happiness is what I feel when reading books. I'm still trying to read manga. So if any of you have any tips on how to read manga, that feeling is very disgruntled, because my brain has a hard time reading backwards. Even though in the Japanese culture, manga is how they read. That's just how they learn to read. But for me, a person who grew up reading a certain way, I haven't been able to read manga, so I've been trying to read Naruto. I've been trying to read One Piece, but I just can't do it. I'm trying again and again. So if you have any tips, I would love to change my feelings about reading manga.
Thank you. Next, we have a question from Penda.
A fifth grade student from Tuscan is asking, what are your favorite books for elementary school students?
My favorite books for elementary school students are first a librarian cop-out would be to have conversations with your library staff and let them kind of do reader's advisory and figure out what books might be what might be best for you. There's so many books out there, but one of my favorite books to recommend is my favorite book, Holes by Louis Sachar, as well as Sideways Stories from Wayside School by Louis Sachar. But I love Front Desk by Kelly Yang. Kelly Yang is a great writer. I love anything that Raina Telgemeier writes. Those are great books for elementary school. Also, Jason Reynolds. Jason Reynolds writes books for almost every single age, but I've been told that a lot of elementary school students fall in love with those books, as well as Wings of Fire. Wings of Fire is great books. I believe that there aren't any books for boys, books for boys, books for girls, but I heard that Wings of Fire is a fan favorite for any student in elementary school, as well as the Warrior series, if you like cats, like myself, as well as I would also offer you to read New Kid by Jerry Craft. That series is also incredible.
Thank you. Yes, Kelly Yang is a crowd favorite. The next question is going to be asked by Innocence.
A Maplewood Middle School student asked, what would you do if you weren't a librarian?
Oh, what would I do? That is very interesting because I guess it depends on if you believe that I am a librarian right now. Some people consider me to be a librarian. I believe I am still a librarian. I will always have the title of librarian because I have a master's degree. So my professor, when I graduated with my degree, said, "Congratulations, you're a librarian." So I take that to heart. But I believe, I can't go into too much detail, but I've always wanted to be an author, a writer. So I have received a book deal for a picture book. So that will be coming out soon. So one of my dreams of being a writer is very, very close to happening. I'm very, very excited about that. But if not, pipe dream will never happen. I'm just a little bit too short. And it's not very good. But I love basketball. It was my favorite sport growing up. I'm a Lakers fan, but I also love the WNBA. I love that there's a women's basketball team coming to the Bay Area very soon, the Valkyries. So I'd love to be a basketball player, but honestly, if I hadn't become a librarian, I would probably become a registered nurse. I would loved and admired nurses. I love how much they care. I love how empathetic they are. And I just love that they save people's lives every single day and that they're always there for people. So if I had not become a librarian, I probably would have pursued becoming a registered nurse.
Thank you. Our next question is coming from Melissa.
A third grade student at South Mountain Elementary School asks, if you could have a meal with any author, who would it be?
Wow. Oh, what a question. I will ask a question back. Is this any author ever? Authors still living? Authors with us? All the above?
I think it's probably any author ever. If I were to think about what the third grader is trying to say, because I didn't really write the question, but probably any author ever. Or you could just answer both of the questions. Any living author. Yeah, just in case.
Perfect. We'll go with both. So probably a living author would probably be with Jason Reynolds. I just think he just is a really cool person. I would love to just get his insight on literature, on literacy, on books, on library joy, but just on life itself. He just seems like an overall. I mean, he looks like a cool dude, like a person who just have a great conversation with. And then any author, it would probably be Beverly Cleary. Beverly Cleary was a librarian. She lived to be 104 years old. She was a librarian. She was a children's librarian, and then she became what I believe to be the greatest author who ever lived. And again, she wrote the characters who were my very first friends as a kid: Ramona and Beezus Quimby, Ralph S. Mouse, all those cool people. But I would also love to have lunch with Judy Bloom. I feel like I would never be able to turn that down.
All right. Our next question is coming from Whitney.
Fifth grade Clinton student asks, as a librarian, how do you get kids excited about books and reading?
How do I get kids excited about books and reading? I think just being generally excited about books and reading. I think just talking to them over and over again. I think when I was at the public library, I think I realized that you can't make kids fall in love with books overnight. It's a process. I think that they appreciated that. I was always going to ask them, "Did you find a good book to read? Do you have your library card? Are you going to get a book?" But I didn't insist that they got a book every time. I always told them it's okay if books weren't their thing, that maybe they would be. And I just kept on trying to find more and more books for them. I think like for reluctant readers, kids who had a hard time reading, I would just keep on having conversations with them, just figuring out what they loved. If they love basketball like I do, if they loved dinosaurs, if they loved Disney princesses, if they wanted to learn about volcanoes, if they just wanted to learn about world history, whatever their interest was. I mean, some kids liked Five Nights at Freddy's. Some kids liked Fortnite. Just letting them know that there really are books about everything nowadays. I think that's just conversations over and over again, and just saying, "Hey, are you ready to read today?" And they're like, "No, not today." And I would say, "You know what? We'll try again tomorrow." And then just giving them more and more options. Eventually, they probably humored me, and their library grown-up just took out a book and tried it, and then they came back and they were like, "You were right. I really like that book." So just meeting them where they're at, and oftentimes. Little library kids, I would say most people in general, but I believe probably third, second grade and under have a tendency to wear what they love on their person. So if they're wearing Spider-Man shirts, if they're wearing Bluey shoes, if they're wearing Paw Patrol, I would just say, "Hey, do you like Paw Patrol? Do you like Spider-Man? Do you know there are these books about it?" And they would just be like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't know," but of course they're wearing it on their person. I think just showing kids that what they love is there for them in literature. It's just the simplest way to get them reading books and loving books, and also just to let them read the same book over and over and over again. I know a lot of grown-ups, a lot of teachers, library people have not a problem, but they get a little bit worried when a kid wants to read Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Man, 1,000 times. I'm like, let them read the book 1,000 times. Maybe on that 1,000th time, they'll have memorized the book, and then that next day, their 1,001th read through will be a different book. If they love a book, if they love reading, let them keep at it. Introduce other books and say, "You can read this book too. Maybe you can read Dogman for an hour, and then you could read this chapter book that you might like for half an hour or an hour." So I think that's honestly, I have no idea. You'd have to ask the kids who maybe I've gotten excited about books what I did, but I think just talking about it relentlessly, like I'm doing right just now. You guys listen to me drone on and on about books in that process for 45 seconds to a minute. So I think honestly, I love books so much, and I treat every conversation, every interaction a little bit different. I know there's no one way to make a person fall in love with books, but just letting them know that books are there for them whenever they're ready. The library's there for them. The library card is ready to be used. It's ready to get those good books. There's a book for every single person, every single kid.
The next question is going to come from Penda.
A second grader from Seth Boyden is asking, what's your favorite book?
I'll see if I can show them to you. So I actually have a lot of them tattooed on me. I don't know if you can see that one. This is Grover from The Monster at the End of This Book. Is one of my absolute favorites. Definitely my favorite read aloud. I loved Where the Wild Things Are. It was probably my very first book, one of the very first books that my mom started reading aloud to me. So I've always wanted to let the Wild Rumpus start ever since I can remember. I have Arthur Reed's library card tattooed on me. I love libraries so much that I got a library card tattooed on me. Arthur Reed, greatest aardvark ever. If you ever find another aardvark, tell them I'm sorry I said that. I also love, the last one I'll show you is, I don't know if you can see it, but it's the Apple Car from Richard Scarry, The Busy World of Richard Scarry. So I call this my Reader's Advisory Arm. They're some of my favorite picture books. But Holes by Louis Sachar is my absolute favorite book of all time. If you like force me down again. I just gave you 6 different answers, but it would be Holes. One of my cats, who I'm surprised they haven't made an appearance, is Kissin' Kat Barlow. She is named after Kissin' Kate Barlow from Holes by Louis Secker. But I also really, really love The Giver by Lois Lowry. I think for anybody who's ever gets that level from being a kid to like the higher grade level of books, when I read The Giver, that was the first time like my mind was blown. Like I was like, wow, like I had a new way of thinking when I read The Giver by Lois Lowry.
Thank you. And Richard Scarry just had the 50th anniversary.
Yes.
So yeah, it's impacted a lot of children, me included. We have some more questions. I believe Innocence has a question.
A third grader at Seth Boyden is asking what your favorite hobby besides reading or TikTok is.
I didn't even know. I guess you could say that TikTok is probably my favorite hobby based on how often I do it. I would say lately is going for walks is one of my favorite hobbies. I love getting out in nature and just feeling the sun on my skin, looking at trees, looking at plants, looking at flowers. I don't have a green thumb, but I love people who garden. I don't have a green thumb, so I have a lot of succulents. So I would say looking at succulents, looking at nature is one of my favorite hobbies. But probably besides that, it is some form of basketball, be it watching basketball on TV, or even playing it sometimes. But especially going to basketball games, I love doing that. But I also play. I finally got a Nintendo Switch, so I play NBA 2K on my Nintendo Switch. I'm getting ready to get Animal Crossing, but I'm also a huge fan of Pokemon, so I still play Pokemon Go. So every time I get to go to a new city, I always still play Pokemon Go, and I get to find new Pokemon in new places and visit new Pokestops and Pokegyms. So I would say those are my favorite hobbies besides libraries, books, and TikTok, as that person so nicely put it.
Thank you. The next question, I think we have another one from Penda.
A 4th grade student from Clinton is asking if you could tell us about your favorite stories from being a librarian.
Yes, yes, I can. I'm laughing because if you ever want to see some of my favorite stories as a librarian, a library kid the other day actually told me there are close to 500 stories that I've told on my hobby, TikTok and Instagram. So there's so many different stories from me being a librarian. On my social media channels. But one of my favorite stories that might be very buried underneath there is, so at libraries sometimes conservation groups who rescue animals will bring animals to the library. And I remember sometimes they would bring like an alligator, or they'd even bring a kangaroo to the library. And I remember telling a class that like, we're gonna have an alligator come to the library for summer reading. They're gonna tell you all about this alligator, about how we have to treat the alligator with respect, just like for Steve Irwin. Steve Irwin was one of my heroes as well. Treated with kindness, and all the kids were like, yeah, animals at the library. But one kid just looked at me very worried. It was just like, I don't trust your face. And the poor librarian, the teacher who were with me, they tried very hard to contain their laughter. They didn't do a very good job. They were laughing way too hard. But the kid just kept saying, I don't trust your face around that alligator. And I'm like, I don't trust my face around the alligator either. I'm not the one who's going to be handling the alligator. The professional, the person who rescued that alligator is going to be there with all of that, with all of us. But the kid just was just like, I don't trust your face around that alligator. They just wouldn't stop. Finally we were all just like, we know, you don't trust my face. That's one of my very favorite stories about the kids being at the library. But I also love, I think, a different story that I haven't spoken on too much. I think I've spoken once or twice. Is just the amount of people who use a library for whatever reasons in life. They have to visit their kids at different times, and the library is this place where they come to be able to see their kids so that they can be reunited. And I just love the memories from when those kids would come. They would be like, hey, Mr. Michael, I'm here to see my mom. I'm here to see my dad. And then later on, the library dad, the library mom would come up and they would just give a big old library hug to each other, and they would just be happy for an hour, 2 hours. They would be happy as they left. They would both come back intermittently throughout the week. And just sheer happiness. And then whenever they were reunited for good, they would come back. They would still come to the library. They'd still come in and say, hey, Mr. Michael, just being there together. And then those are just some of the most special moments, memories to me. It's an example of what the library means to community, that just is such a special place. You never know what the library is, but it's a safe place that we know. There's some things that happen, but it's always going to be a safe place. So those are just two stories. There's so many more. I could talk to you about library stories for the next 2-3 hours if we had the time.
The next question I believe we have is from Whitney.
A third grader from Seth Boyden asks, what is next in your life?
Man, that's such great questions. So what is next in my life is still some more visits like these. I love these visits. They mean so much to me, to be able to talk to people virtually or in person, to talk about library joy, to talk about libraries being for everyone. Seriously, everyone belongs in the local library. The library is that cool a place. I think it's cooler than Disneyland. It's cooler than Disney World. It's cooler than Universal Studios. A lot of people might argue with me, but hey, that's what I believe. So what's next is more visits. I mentioned that I'm writing a picture book, so hopefully that picture book will be out in the world pretty soon. I'm really excited for that. That's going to be a dream come true. And then just figuring things out. Honestly, I never know. I get to do such cool things, talking about libraries, supporting library people. But that's what's next. Writing a book, fighting for libraries, fighting for the love of libraries, fighting for libraries to stay open in the United States and across the world, to get the funding that they deserve. Library people deserve everything good. They're such wonderful people who support and embrace the best of our community. Every single person, our neighbors, we're all in this together. And then just figuring out my next steps, figuring out when I'm going to be hopefully coming back to a local library to work more often, to help people remember their password, find their next favorite book, and just take advantage of every free resource that comes with a local library and a library card.
Thank you. And our last question, we're going to go to Melissa.
A student in 4th grade from South Mountain asks, what do you plan on writing your book about and what inspired you?
I love that. I'm laughing because I don't believe I can say what the actual picture book is about. So I will say that there is another book deal looming. So what I plan to write about is the library kids. I kind of plan to like tell different stories of library kids and what they mean to libraries and the different experiences and adventures that they can have at the local library, to just try to tell stories just as they happen, to hopefully make people laugh as they read books, but also just to see that anything's possible, that they all have a story to tell, that their story should be told. I'm hoping to affirm that through the stories that I write. And I also want to either kind of what's next a little bit, and what you asked is either to write the book, or maybe just to start a podcast of sorts, assuring people that they're not alone, that kind of asking, are you ready for joy? I believe that joy is always there for every single one of us. It's okay to have hard days, it's okay to have bad days, but joy is there for us any day that ends in Y. Mondays, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And whenever you want to get your joy, Monday, today, yesterday, tomorrow, next year, it's always going to be there for you. And that's what I'm hoping that anything that I write does for people. I hope it brings them joy, because writing brings me joy, but most importantly, the library and the chance that someone will remember that they belong in the local library, and that hopefully they'll keep on keeping on, that they'll get to the next day. That is my joy, and I'm hoping to infuse that in anything I write from this day forward.
Thank you so much for answering so many of the children's questions with such heart. At this point, I'm going to send it back to Karen.
Hey, Michael, this was fantastic. We thank you so much. You brought us library joy, you brought us reading joy, and libraries are really the heart and soul of our community. So to have you here, along with our Maplewood librarians and our South Orange librarians and our school district librarians and our Columbia High School students, has been just amazing for us. It's been a joy. So thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to say as you say goodbye?
Absolutely. I would just like to say thank you all for your time. Thank you for this opportunity. I love talking about libraries. I take any chance I can get. Thank you to the students who asked those wonderful questions for yourselves and on behalf of those students. I love that so much. To the librarians wearing your very cool, fun library shirts, fighting for libraries, serving your communities. Thank you for what you're doing. I didn't say I will give it to the people who I'm in the email communication with, but my best email address is librarianmichael, the funny way I spell Michael, MYCHAL, @gmail.com. If your students ever want to ask me more questions, I would love to email them back with responses. And thank you for your library joy. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for loving libraries enough to ask questions of a library's #1 fan like myself. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. This is amazing.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Bye, Michael.
Bye.